Hi there, and welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. I'm Blondie.
And I'm T.
And I am so excited about this episode. It's going to be so much fun. But before we get there...
Wait. Is it going to be fun? Maybe for you, but not for me. This is going to go deep.
I know it is, but I love it because it's a personal story. It's part of your life, and I'm so excited. But before we get there, I wanted to put in that little current event 0 cents segment that we have added. This story is about 2 women that got pulled over for shoplifting. Apparently, they left the store. The police had been called already because they knew that they were shoplifting. After they left with all the merchandise, they pulled them over. I believe it was a mother and a daughter, but that's just my speculation.
Keep it in the family.
So the woman had asked why she got pulled over, and the police officer told her for shoplifting. They talked to the girl who says she's 17, which that's up for debate. But then when asked if she had taken anything, she says no. Of course, they go through the car because they have video of them stealing. So they find all these clothes still on the hangers, everything's still attached. While they're doing this, they run these 2 women for warrants. They both have warrants out for their arrest for shoplifting. While in the back of the police car, the 17-year-old says, "She told me if it's under $500, you just get a citation." The officer says, "No, we added it all up and it was way more than that." This is the best part. The woman pipes up and says, "But everything was 40 to 50% off. Did you add that in?" The officer, holding back laughter, says, "Ma'am, you don't get a discount when you shoplift."
Oh, but you do. It was 100% off until you get caught.
I watched that so many times and cracked up every time.
Where did you see this on?
It was just one of the video things that I watch. I go through Instagram and all the social media, and I saw it on a couple different ones. It was from the body cams, but I just thought it was hysterical.
That is so funny.
So, okay, now we did the current event 0 cents. It's time.
So I'm a little excited about this too, but it kind of hit me hard a little bit writing this story. I really had, how I told you I have a really good memory. I really had to go back, almost relive this stuff all over again. And it was a lot. I'm not going to lie, but let's go way back just for a moment. Flashback to young T and Blondie in our very first episode. It was the year of the dinosaur and we were just cave girl babies. Just kidding. I'm only going back a couple of years, but it feels like an ice age ago, doesn't it?
Did you just say cave girl babies?
I sure did. I wanted everyone to get a visual of us with cheetah diapers and bones in our hair. We're stinking adorable.
Okay. That's where we're going to begin.
In that episode titled, "It's Time to Go," I had mentioned my crazy experience living in my own real-life haunted house. And I did promise I'd tell this story at some point, and what better time than now? For those of you who have no clue what I'm talking about, in our first episode, Blondie and I shared our haunted experience while visiting Seattle in 2010. Blondie had not yet been to that charming little city, so we had decided to stay a couple of extra nights since we were in Washington anyway. We're always down for any excuse to extend a trip, 'cause that's how we roll.
Yes, ma'am. And sometimes I think we do stuff just to see how much trouble we can get in.
Always time for trouble. And when there isn't, we make time.
Exactly. Ask Canada.
Poor Canada. For this part of our trip, Blondie had found Seattle's Marqueen Hotel. It was a beautiful historic hotel with one little tiny catch. It was haunted. Quite honestly, when I heard about this place being haunted, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I hope something does happen because that would be so much fun.
Yeah, you're always badass at that point.
Right.
Before we get there.
I know, and then I regret it. Now, up to this trip, my haunted house was the only paranormal experience I'd ever had. And after that whole thing, the thought of this little two-nighter didn't scare me at all. Looking back on that overconfident stupidity, I shake my head and think, you and your big fat mouth.
I remember you were just so tough.
And Blondie, even though she's a big old scaredy cat, had her own reasons for wanting to stay at this particular hotel. Her family has a history with Ford, and this hotel started as apartments for the Ford Motor Company engineers. So it was going to be a cool place to stay. Or so we thought. Silly us. Again, if you haven't heard that episode, check it out. Season 1, Episode 1 doesn't get easier than that. So get her done.
And you're right. My motivation for staying there was quite innocent, where yours was a little nuts.
You came up with it. I just was on board because I'm that cool friend.
I saw Ford and went for it.
I saw Scary and said, yes, please.
Yes, you did.
So now on to this nightmare. Let's let the grim begin. So here's a little childhood background to clarify some stuff up front. We moved a lot when I was a kid, which plays into this story. Because after I get going on this, I'm sure a lot of people will be thinking, why didn't you guys just immediately move when stuff started getting freaky? Valid question. Here's why. Up till about age 9, I remember moving at least 6 times. Different locations, different schools, all the stuff that kids don't want. Then when I was about 10-ish, my stepdad came into the picture and my parents bought their first home. It was a beautiful home. Actually, 2 beautiful homes on a lot in the city of Bell, California. Now, from 10 years old to 14 years old, my parents bought and sold real estate for profit. We had to live in any home they purchased for like 6 months in order to qualify for the type of loan that they received. At the time, I understood it, but it still sucked having to move after 6 months. Thank goodness they kept our 2 homes in the city of Bell, which is where we lived between moves. As a kid, I just wanted that one home for stability and childhood memories.
And when you first told me about this, I thought you had moved for military reasons.
No,
I did.
I wish. At least I would have seen the world if it was for military reasons. At this point, there were 4 children. My older brother, myself, my younger brother, and a much younger sister. We fell in love with the school district we had landed in since I was in 4th grade. We lived at that time in the city of Commerce, and I attended Bandini Elementary. I loved living in Commerce. That was the first place that really felt like home for me. After moving school to school up to that point, it was hard to make friends. Or maybe not make them, but keep them because we always moved away. But with the continued moving, we ended up living outside of the school district that we loved. We continued attending those schools, but were always worried that the school would find out and we'd get kicked out.
That had to have been rough, sitting in the back of your mind every day when you went to school.
Yeah, and hearing we were going to move again, it's like, oh, how are we going to do it this time? So by the time we were in high school, we were still in that school district, had settled in with wonderful friends and great educators. So now we really didn't want to be forced to change schools because my brothers and I were all very involved in school activities like sports, ASB, and I was a cheerleader. I look back on those years with great fondness and am genuinely thankful for being able to stay in our school of choice, which provided an exceptional social and academic experience.
So I have a question.
Yeah,
Do you still have your cheerleading outfit?
I sure do.
Does your husband want you to wear it?
I couldn't wear that if my life depended on it.
I'm sorry, I got a visual. I had to go there.
And you know what's funny is when you're in high school, you always think you're so fat. I look at that outfit and I'm like, geez, Louise, I was so tiny.
I totally remember that. I look at pictures of me going, I remember that time. I thought I was huge. I would kill to be that size now.
Oh, good times. So hopefully that clarifies why we wanted to find a forever home in the city that we went to school in and why we were so desperate to stay, no matter what.
Okay, I get that.
So when my parents finally announced that they found our forever home in the city of Bell Gardens, which is where we went to school, it was such a relief. I was thrilled about this house, sight unseen. As long as I was guaranteed to be able to go to Bell Gardens High School, I was ecstatic. 'Cause, yup, Lancers for life, baby. Now, let me give you a little haunted house background. I recently looked up the house, and it was built in 1908, and there have been 12 recorded owners. That seems a little excessive, doesn't it?
It does. Well, maybe it wasn't everyone's forever home.
It was at least one thing's forever home. I know that. But here's something I was very surprised to learn. My family were the last sellers of this house, meaning that whoever purchased it from us still lives in it today. And that was decades ago. Knowing what I know, my mind is blown. I can't even begin to fathom how it would be possible for a family to live there for decades. I'm not trying to throw shade, more power to them, but I can't stop myself from thinking, what the hell is going on with those people? Because I can say without a doubt that they've had haunted experiences there. In fact, I get confirmation of this many years later. And I'll get to that confirmation towards the end of the story.
Maybe it was a conversation piece.
Now, I'm sure my family members will hear these stories and have some opinions about what they remember as well. We all had our own experiences, but most of these stories are what I personally witnessed or experienced. And I actually had asked my brothers to share their own memories a while back, and one of them agreed to do it. But I let a lot of time go by, so I didn't pursue it. Plus, most of these are dark memories, so I didn't want to be pushy. But by not following up, I guess you could say I ghosted them. I'm funny all day. I don't care what you guys say.
You're a comedian in your own mind.
But if at some point my brothers want to share their stories, I would love to do a part 2 focusing on them. The door remains ajar. Ooh, that sounded so creepy, huh?
Oh my gosh. That would be a blast to have them tell their stories. I mean, I have my own horror stories when one of them lived with us for a while, but that story's not for another day. I love your brothers and your sisters.
Yeah, they're good people. But don't get me started on the summer with that brother who will remain unnamed.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
All right, now that you know a little bit about the history of the house, let's get to the good stuff. These stories are not going to be in exact order except for the first ones. I know those were when we first moved in, and the last ones happened toward the end of our stay. Everything in between is a blur, but it doesn't really make a difference overall.
So that would make it a blended haunted blur.
Yeah. It was spring when we moved into our new home. This house wasn't anything extravagant, but it was very old, kind of cool and unique. It was on a corner and had 2 stories, and we'd never lived in a 2-story before. There were 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, an indoor laundry room, and right off of the ridiculously huge master bedroom, there was a big covered balcony that was built right into the roof. It felt kind of fancy for the neighborhood.
Kind of bougie.
Yeah, a little bougie. Now, just so you all can picture the house, there were 2 front doors, just a few inches apart. Not weird at all, right? If you came in through the front door on the right, you would walk into the living room, which opened up into a dining room, then a kitchen. In the dining room, which was smack dab in the middle of the house, there was a door on the left that led to a small room under the stairs. If you walked through that door, there was another door that opened up into a weird bedroom. It was like a shortcut to the other side of the house. I say a weird bedroom because that room had like 3 doors leading into it. We ended up using it for storage. It was very odd. On the other side, if you walked in through the left front door, there was my older brother's bedroom, then the weird room, a laundry room, then a bathroom. There was also a big solid wood back door with no window. That door had a bolt lock that required a key on both sides. It was so annoying that we needed a key to lock it on the outside as well as on the inside. Why not just have a knob to lock it from the inside? And not having a window to see who's out there quickly became a huge issue. Upstairs, there was my bedroom, then my little brother's bedroom, the master bedroom, and a bathroom.
I've never seen it, but I'm picturing one of those old New Orleans type houses.
That's pretty close, actually, without all the frilly wrought iron work around the balcony.
Gotcha. And, by the way, we actually had a lock at our house, a bolt lock that had to have a key on both sides.
Why?
I don't know. You can't get in, you can't get out. I don't know.
Silly. Okay, move-in day. I was 14 years old and pretty excited to be moving for the final time. I had my own room right next to my little brother's room. He was 12. My older brother was 15, and he had his own room as well, but it was downstairs next to the weird room. His room was connected to the left front door, so he had his own private entrance. I'm sure my brother felt like he had a little more privacy and freedom down there, doing God knows what. Just kidding, big brother. He's a really good guy.
I absolutely concur with that. He's a sweetie.
I'm sure he loved all that privacy. at first. The house also had a 3-car garage that was detached. There was a double-car garage and a separate walled-off single-car garage. When my parents looked at the house initially, they saw the inside of the double garage, but for whatever reason, never saw the inside of the single garage. I'm guessing they didn't think it was a big deal. A garage is a garage.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. But on moving day, they planned to use that single garage for storage. And when they finally opened it up, we were all very surprised to see what the garage was filled with. Wedding gifts. I'm talking still beautifully wrapped, and some even still had cards attached. The gifts were not dusty, so they hadn't been there too long, and there was layer upon layer of wedding presents filling up a good portion of that garage. It was an extremely odd and unexpected thing to discover, especially since the couple we bought the house from were not newlyweds. So having the previous owner's information, my mom called to let them know that they had obviously forgotten a buttload of wedding gifts in the garage, and could they please come and pick them up so that we can utilize that space. But the previous owner, without hesitation, told her, quote, "You can just keep the gifts. We're definitely not coming back. Consider them a housewarming gift," end quote. Then he abruptly hung up the phone.
Well, that sounds a little ominous.
It was weird. This was so puzzling because there were a lot of gifts. And who gives up gifts without any idea of what's in them? But we ain't stupid. Their loss, our gain.
I'd be going, cha-ching.
So we ended up with a lot of brand new household items. And there was even cash inside some of the cards. It was like Christmas in the spring. Seems like a good omen, right?
Depends.
Exactly. But it didn't take too long to realize there was a reason these people would give away so much without a moment's hesitation. Their refusal to return started to make perfect sense after a while. Another bizarre discovery made on day one was in the space under the stairs. The stairs ran right through the middle of the house with the rest of the house surrounding it like a horseshoe. So it was kind of the heart of the home, and we thought it would be a fun place to hang out. But when I first walked in there, I wasn't alone. I'm not sure if one or both of my brothers were with me, but in that space, there was a single bulb light. You know, the kind where you pull that metal chain to turn that one exposed bare bulb on. Same kind as every serial killer's basement in every movie where all the killing occurs. Yeah, that one. It was dark in that little space, and when we pulled the chain, we saw something that to this day, I still can't begin to explain.
I totally had visions of all the horror movies when you pull the chain and then something's behind you.
Well, nothing behind us, but it was exactly that same scene.
Yeah. So you described it quite well because I pictured it.
In that room, we encountered hundreds of little white feathers, and every one of these feathers was pure white, not a spot on them, just perfectly bright white. Even the ones that fell to the floor stayed white, not gathering dust or dirt. And it was dusty on the floor, so, Size-wise, I'd say they were no more than 1 to maybe 1.5 inches long, so they were pretty small. From the moment we walked in, these strange little white feathers were floating throughout the space. And when I say floating, I mean like that cartoon exaggerated zigzag floating pattern that makes a constant wide Z, just going back and forth. They floated that way all the way down to the floor, very, very slowly. Well, we immediately needed to know where these freaky feathers were coming from because it was weird and there were so many of them. So we scoured the room for any type of opening that the feathers might be coming out of. But we found nothing. There were no holes, not even a teeny tiny one. The room was completely sealed up. So now we're thinking maybe a bird died inside the wall or the ceiling. But that didn't really make sense either because unless somebody or something plucked every feather of that bird's corpse, why would the feathers be everywhere? And if this bird met some type of grisly death, why wouldn't there be blood or any signs of trauma on the freaky feathers? And on top of all this, there was no noticeable airflow in that room. It was super stale and stuffy. So how did the feathers float in the first place? And why were each and every one of them float falling so inexplicably slow? If I had to guess, I would say it would take one feather at least 30 seconds to go from ceiling to floor. That's a long time for a feather float fall. In fact, when I was writing this, I asked Alexa how long that should take, and she said a feather usually takes about 5 seconds from ceiling to floor. So yeah, big, unexplainable, freaky difference.
Did you ask Alexa why it took 30 seconds for them to fall in your house? I mean, you never know. She may have had an answer.
She may have. Sometimes I think Alexa is from another realm as well.
She gets a little smarty pants too, by the way.
Yeah, I know. So does Siri.
They both have attitudes.
We're going to have to check those girls at some point. Naturally, there were some feathers on the floor, but never a lot of them. There were consistently more feathers falling through the air than there ever was on the floor. At one point, I actually stayed in that space for a short while to test this, and the amount of feathers that should have gathered on the floor never happened, not even close. There was always the same sparse amount of feathers on the floor and what appeared to be the same number of abundant feathers in the air. But I only ever saw them zigzag down and never saw any go back up. Yet somehow they must have. Otherwise, there should be a big pile of feathers on the floor. But there wasn't. You can't make this stuff up, people.
It's not like you're writing a movie or anything. This actually happened.
Exactly. So after taking all this in and trying to figure it out, we caught as many feathers as we could, cleaned up the ones on the floor, tossed them in the trash, and went on our way to keep exploring the rest of the house. We'll talk more about the freaky feathers later.
Something to prepare for?
Another thing about the space under the stairs was that there was a peephole in the second door that led into the weird room. So obviously some feather-loving freakazoid was sneak peeping into the weird bedroom. No, that's not terrifying, right? Between that and the freaky floating feathers, the space under the stairs was way too creepy for me.
I would never have gone back in there again.
Well, we did.
Glutton for punishment.
After a few more days in the house, we started hearing some weird noises. But my parents kept saying the house was old, and old houses creaked. I personally didn't hear a lot of noises at first, but the noises I did hear were definitely not creaking. I would hear things like as if a person or people were naturally moving about the house, not making any effort to be quiet. But when I heard these, what would have been normal moving about noise, it was usually when I was home alone, and it wasn't me. Along with the strange noises, I know it's such a cliche, but pretty much from the get-go, I always felt like someone was watching me in my room. My bedroom had one small window right behind my bed, and my room was way too small for me to put my bed anywhere else. And I remember putting up a towel or whatever was available to throw over the curtain at night so that I knew for sure nobody could see in. Seems a little extra since I was upstairs, but it made me feel a little bit more secure. Little did I know that feeling was actually coming from inside the house.
And I was just going to say, isn't it amazing how a little towel or a sheet or whatever can make you feel safe and secure? Not that they can do anything, but it makes you feel safe and secure. Except in this instance, if it's coming from inside.
It wasn't going to help me no matter where it was coming from. As time went on, the feeling of being watched never went away. In fact, it got much worse. Fairly quickly, I started to feel it all through the house, every room, even in the bathroom. I remember taking the fastest showers because the thought of being watched while I was completely naked was even more distressing. It sounds ridiculous, but I guess I felt more vulnerable. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was just letting my imagination get the best of me. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, it was constantly there. I never had a moment of feeling at ease in that home. And with my insomnia, I think I suffered more than anyone else in my family since I was awake till early morning sometimes. It was a very stressful time.
And you're still that way. You still have serious insomnia.
I've had insomnia since probably about 6 or 7 years old. That's when I fell in love with Johnny Carson because I was up all night. I used to watch his show.
Where did that come in? But okay, get it now.
Yeah, I was up all night and Johnny Carson was on for 90 minutes back then from 11:30 to 1, and I watched him every night.
In my brain, I heard Johnny Cash. That's why I paused. I went, what?
Not too long after moving in, I want to say it was less than 30 days, we came home one day to what appeared to be perfectly normal. But when we opened the back door, there were flames coming from the weird room, and they were huge. Once we had the door open, lots of black smoke started billowing out of the house. The fire department was called, and they came out pretty quickly. But while we were outside, we could see the smoke getting thicker and starting to seep out of the windows. It's such a weird feeling to sit there and just watch helplessly while your home is burning up. It looked like it was all gonna come crashing down.
I never had that, but I can only imagine.
You feel pretty helpless. The firemen went into the back door with smoke pouring out. We just watched them disappear, fully geared up. They were in there for a little while, and it seemed like they had put the fire out because the smoke stopped. When they started coming out of the house, they were quietly talking to each other and not paying attention to us at all. And weirdly, nobody looked stressed or like they had just fought a major fire. They calmly started packing up, and one of the firemen came over to talk to us, and you could tell he wasn't sure what to say. It took him a minute while we were waiting on pins and needles. He starts to explain that the fire essentially put itself out once they entered the house. They never even had to use water. And they were baffled because with those big flames and all that smoke, there was absolutely no damage done to the structure. Not even a small trace of black soot was left behind. How is that even possible?
Maybe the feathers got together, made a big fan, and fanned it out.
The one good thing they did.
All right.
But they did find the cause of the fire. We had stored a little 13-inch black and white TV in the weird bedroom because nobody watched it anymore. But the fireman said he couldn't fully explain the scene. The little TV had been kept on a vinyl chair that was part of an old dining set. The TV had caught fire and completely melted onto the seat of the vinyl chair. It melted like a puddle of ice cream on a hot summer's day. But when they picked up the now cooled puddle of TV, it came up in one solid piece, and inexplicably, the vinyl cushion it melted on was still in perfect condition. Not scorched, not even slightly warped. In fact, we kept that flame-proof chair that refused to die because there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Well, minus the fact that it was obviously a demon's throne now. Keeping it was probably a really bad idea in retrospect, but that's how you learn, right?
Right? Well, why get rid of a perfectly good chair that can withstand fire? That's just crazy.
Naturally, with the little TV completely liquefied, the firemen assumed it was an electrical fire. But when they checked, surprise, surprise, say it with me, the TV wasn't even plugged in. I know we've all heard stories like this before, but this was real. And that electrical with no electricity fire wasn't even what we focused on. It was more confusing to see a significant area in your home filled with smoke and engulfed in flames, and miraculously, there's absolutely no damage. Nothing. That was the focus. There wasn't even a burnt smell of any kind left behind. Even after seeing the completely melted TV and the mysteriously pristine vinyl chair with my very own eyes, I knew this was not possible. Yet, there it was, staring right back at me, defying logic.
So you said there was absolutely no smell of smoke? There was no little scorch anything anywhere?
Nothing. You would never know there was a fire in that house, ever.
Wow.
It was unsettling. My little brother was always a social butterfly. The moves were easier for him because he always made friends immediately with the neighborhood kids. So he brings a new friend home who seems like a nice kid. After hanging out for a little bit, the kid asks my brother if they can play in our basement. My brother says, "We don't have a basement." But the kid says, "Yeah, you do. I've played in it before." The kid then walks into our kitchen and says that there was a floor door going into the basement right here, and he points to where the refrigerator now sits. When we moved in, the whole kitchen floor was covered with a vinyl flooring sheet, which left no sign of or access to a basement floor door. But my brother knew my mom really wanted a basement. We all did. So naturally, he told her what his friend said. Curious, she has my dad move the fridge and lift up that corner of the flooring. I'm very interested in all this because I want a basement too. Doesn't every kid?
Not in this house, especially since you've already got a space that's possessed with feathers, a room that Satan lives in, and apparently a non-existent fire issue. At this point, I kind of would pass on the basement.
But that was going to be my safe place.
I think this kid had something to do with it, to be honest with you.
How is the kid guilty?
Trying to bring up stuff happening in your house.
Satan's son.
That's right.
So when my dad lifts up the flooring, we see this big cemented square shape that is noticeably different from the rest of the floor. It's very clear that this fresher cement was not professionally done because it's sloppy and we can see trowel marks. I didn't immediately interpret this as a hair-raising moment, but after seeing the looks on my parents' faces, I knew it definitely wasn't good. They told us later that even if the house did have a basement, they were not going to reopen it because it, quote, didn't look safe. Man, was I relieved that they didn't move forward with that little adventure. Who knows why someone would hand cement an entire basement shut? I didn't want to start guessing, but if I had, my guess words would have ended in iller, erderer, and ecomposing oddies. It's probably a pretty safe bet to assume they weren't cementing up more wedding presents. Another very memorable incident involved a close friend of mine. I had a guy friend from the city of Bell who always found a way to visit me no matter where I moved. He had a big crush and was determined to stay connected. It was cute in a stalkerish kind of way. Anyway, he of course made his way over to visit me in my new house. When he showed up, I wasn't expecting him and I was home alone, but was still pleasantly surprised. It was early evening when he arrived. He had a friend who gave him a ride, and the friend was waiting in the car for him right in front of my house, but parked across the street facing my front porch. When I answer the door, he starts to come in, but I let him know that he can't really come in because nobody else was home. Even though my family knew him, I'd still get in trouble for that. But it was really cold outside, so he does come in, stays right next to the door, and closes it behind him. He even kept his hand on the doorknob and joked about a quick getaway if my brothers came home. So we start catching up, but my friend keeps looking all around the room while we're talking. He's super distracted. So I'm like, hey, rude, are you even listening? And he doesn't say anything. So I ask him if he's okay, and he says, quote, no, I'm not okay. I'm really not okay, end quote. I'm like, what's wrong? And he stays silent. Then this guy who literally chases me everywhere dramatically says, I can't be in your house. So I kind of laughed because I thought he was joking, but he's dead serious and says it again. Then in a more panicked tone, he says he has to leave right now. I'm super confused with what's happening. He quickly says there's something really wrong with my house. He's scared and something doesn't feel right. And while he's telling me this, he's super jittery. I've known this guy for over 5 years at this point, and he's definitely not a wimp. He's street smart and tough, and I've never seen him scared of anything. He's very outgoing, and he's always trying to impress me. So this is a side of him I've never seen. But he can't hide the fact that he's scared. He's making me really nervous too. As we're having this conversation, someone pounds on the front door really hard. We both jumped. But since my friend already has his hand on the doorknob, he whips that door open in a flash. And there's nobody there. He even peeks out and still sees no one. Now this house is not only surrounded by a wrought iron fence, but it has a decent sized enclosed, old and very creaky porch. So you can only enter it by going up the few stairs in the front. One way in and one way out, and you definitely would make noise doing it. But before we can really process what just happened, we suddenly hear someone pounding on the back door even harder. It scares the crap out of us. I'm not sure what to do because I'm anxious now, but it could be my family coming home, which you can't see when they come home unless you go to the back of the house and look out the kitchen windows. So I ask my friend to wait while I run to the back door, the one with no windows. I quickly use the key to unlock it, and again, there's nobody there. I literally run back to my friend at the front of the house, and he's waiting in the living room but came in further to keep his eyes on me. The second I return, there's immediately more pounding on the front door. My friend opens the door, goes out onto the porch, and still there's no one in sight. So he calls out to his friend in the car park across the street and asks him if he has seen anyone come up to the porch. His friend says no, and that he's tired of waiting. So, quote, just kiss the girl and let's go already, end quote. He was such an idiot and still is.
Do I know this friend and his idiot friend?
Yep, you know my friend and that idiot very well. Didn't you threaten to beat him up?
I think I did.
So now my friend is even more eager to get the hell out of my house. But before he can escape, the pounding starts up again at the back door. This time I didn't respond. But unlike the times before where it pounded and paused, this time the pounding was constant. It felt like we were in a B-rated horror movie and the killer was toying with us before he ultimately takes us down. With the pounding not stopping, I begged my friend, who now suddenly doesn't even want to know me, thanks a lot, to go with me from the outside and around to the back of the house to catch whoever's playing this terrifying prank. He very hesitantly goes with me, but I'm pretty sure he would have let me go alone if I didn't push, butthead. We peek around the corner and there's no one at the back door, but we can still hear the pounding. Now it sounds like it's coming from inside the house, which was even more terrifying. My so-called friend says, sorry, but I gotta go. I really can't be here anymore. It's messing with my head. I'll call you later. I was really terrified, but that bonehead still left. He couldn't handle it, not even for the maybe 10 minutes he was there. And although I lived in that house for about a year, he never came back.
So he's going to call you later and try and get the kiss later, but right now he can't have your back?
Not at all. He didn't give a crap about me.
Okay.
The next time I spoke to him, he felt really bad and apologized. He was embarrassed, but he said there was no way he could stay there because he had immediately felt something dark and evil in the house. He said he had no idea how I could live there every day, and he was legitimately scared for me. But it's not like I had a choice.
Was his friend in the house?
Which friend?
The one that drove him? Something dark and evil?
And evil. We just figured it out.
There you go.
As teenagers, just like now, phones were everything. But back then, our phones were still attached to a wall. So we had to physically go to where the phone was connected. Crazy, right? My little brother and I decided to get our very own phone installed upstairs. We had our own phone number and everything. Balas! Even though I was only 14, I worked at a little Mexican restaurant named Casa Churro. And yes, they specialized in churros. They were so good.
Ooh, now I want a churro.
So with my little churro dinero, I was able to pay my half of the phone bill. I'm not sure how my brother paid, but we got our own phone and that's all that mattered. The phone was installed in his bedroom because it was closer to the top of the stairs and easier for us to get to in a hurry.
I remember my phone was in my bedroom 2 doors down from where the entry into the hallway was. I used to have one of those big old long cords and I'd set it on the bookshelf so that I wouldn't have to go to my room because by the time I got to my room, it stopped ringing. And that was horrifying.
That was your worst nightmare, was missing a call.
Exactly.
So from the moment we got our phone, new games began. It was definitely messing with us. Our phone would ring daily. And no, it wasn't because we were super popular like we hoped. It would sporadically ring while one of us was upstairs or down, and there were actually people calling us. But if we were both downstairs, that phone rang constantly. So when we heard it, we would tear up those stairs to answer. But without fail, as soon as we hit the top of the stairs, the ringing stopped. This happened at least a bajillion times. No matter if we got up there in a few seconds or if we took our time, the ringing stopped, sometimes even in mid-ring. The first few times, I still went all the way into my brother's room and picked up the receiver anyway, thinking I still might catch whoever had called. But all I got was dial tone. Then, even if I hung around for a while waiting, nothing happened. But as soon as I went back downstairs, boom, it rang again. At first, we thought maybe we just weren't fast enough, but eventually we saw a pattern. It got to the point where every time the phone rang, I just got scared. Because in my mind, something had to be watching us in order to time this so perfectly. We eventually didn't even want the phone to ring anymore, and we had it taken out. Can you imagine two teenagers getting rid of a phone? You know it had to have freaked our freak.
Absolutely. Maybe it was a Richard Simmons phone, the kind that makes you run up and down the stairs to get your exercise.
I had another guy friend come over one night who I was very close to. He was like a brother, and he knew my family well. Why do I always get along with men so well? And I still do. It's weird.
I do have an answer for that, but I'll just let that remain a mystery.
Your mind always goes there, and you know it's not true.
All right. How many years have I known you?
This was before I knew you, okay? Before. These were the innocent years.
Now we're time warping the story. Okay.
This is the year of innocence. Leave me alone. This friend was a football player, wrestler, and all-around athlete, so he wasn't a pushover. When he came over, we were playing board games as a family, so he joined in. My brother and I still had our phone at this point. We were all having fun downstairs, and then all of a sudden we could hear footsteps upstairs right above us, which was my room and my brother's room. I'm not talking about normal or faint footsteps, but really heavy, steel-toed boots kind of footsteps. The whole family was downstairs, so nobody would have been up there. I think because we had company, we all tried to blow it off a little, but while we were doing our best to ignore it, the footsteps kept getting louder and louder. We would stop and listen, but then go back to playing our game. We had become numb to some of this nonsense by this point. But I believe because we kept ignoring it, it became more aggressive and started stomping. It was so hard and deliberate that I kept thinking maybe someone really was up there. And what if they stomped their way through the ceiling at some point? Even our light fixtures were shaking due to the movement coming from up there. This new aggression made us stop playing, and we were definitely paying attention. But what do? We knew no one was up there, but what if someone was? Either way, we were way too scared to go and investigate. My poor friend was getting nervous, because unlike us, he didn't know what was happening.
So were your parents not home? It was just you kids?
No, parents were home. Everybody was home.
Okay.
When we paid attention, the stomping stopped for a bit, and we all relaxed a little. Then our phone started ringing. But my brother and I were too scared to run up there. So this phone rang and rang and rang. If I had to guess, we must have let it ring 20 to 30 times. It wouldn't stop. So too scared to go alone, my friend and I both ran up there. But as usual, as soon as we reached the top of the stairs, it stopped. So we quickly ran back down. It immediately rang again. We ran back up, same thing. I already knew this game. So we ran up one final time and just unplugged it. As soon as we came back down, feeling like we had won, the stomping came back with an almost angry intention. Now we're all scared to death. When you know something paranormal is taunting you, it's really hard to not be.
Sheesh, talk about needy. Pay attention to me.
I know, right? He was so sensitive.
Right. So your parents didn't go up there and look around?
Heck no. They probably thought we were stupid going up there and looking around.
Wow. Okay.
They had other kids. They could sacrifice me.
One less mouth to feed.
And the other one was just a friend. He didn't mean nothing.
You could call the parents. Come pick him up. We don't need him anymore.
That's right. Now, on a side note, mind you, I have to sleep up there that very same night. I honestly don't know how I dealt with it. And my tough friend who was visiting was more scared than the rest of us because he had never experienced anything like this before. And even though we were very close, I had never told him about my house. In fact, I never told anyone. But that night he had come over by skateboard and he was way too nervous to skateboard home alone. So he asked my dad to give him a ride. He's never done that before, so he was really rattled. I felt bad.
Well, if you tell all your friends, they're all going to want to come over and see the haunting.
At the time, I just remember thinking if I tell people, they're going to think I'm insane. Honestly, that's what I thought.
Oh, don't kid yourself. You're insane. We all know it.
But I didn't know it back then. I know it now, but I didn't know it back then.
With age comes wisdom.
Exactly. My brothers and I kind of had an unspoken agreement not to tell our friends, or anybody for that matter, what we were experiencing at home. Like I said before, we were all very active at school. We sure didn't want to look like suddenly we'd lost our minds. But I'll just speak for myself and say, none of my friends knew about the paranormal stuff while I lived in the house. After I moved and years later, I told a couple of people I trusted, but that's it. Because I still didn't want to look crazy.
Well, no more than normal crazy.
Normal crazy is perfectly acceptable, but paranormal crazy is not.
No, it is not. And can you imagine going to your counselors and telling them?
Right.
You go if you're being bullied or if something's happening at home. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I would have got a new white jacket that day. But my friend who was there that night now knew my little secret. And I don't think he told anyone, probably for the same reason that I didn't. Even he and I didn't really talk about this experience till much later in life. But interestingly enough, years later, he told me he still doesn't believe in ghosts. He said, quote, I don't know what was happening at your house, because that was definitely real. And it scared the out of me. But I don't want to believe it was a ghost. End quote. I was really confused by this way of thinking and remember saying to him, how can you have even just that one experience and still not believe it was something supernatural? He couldn't explain it. He just didn't want to believe it. I personally think that the thought of him having an actual paranormal experience was just too much for him. And believe me, no judgment. I totally get it.
It's that whole, I don't see it, I don't hear it, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. As time goes on, the noises throughout the house become a normal thing. It sounds crazy, but to try and keep your sanity, you kind of have to just learn to live with cabinets, drawers, and doors opening and closing all throughout the day and night. Footsteps, no matter where you are, continue to follow you, and the washer and dryer constantly being started by no one. This just became background noise. It had to, because if I tried to continually process tangible movement by a non-existent being, I would have driven myself literally insane.
Remember that episode when I told you we had a microwave that kept turning itself on? It never dawned on me it could be a ghost warming up his dinner.
And there you go. Super innocent. Just a hungry
Right?
ghost. Things got so distressing at home, my dad purchased a gun. Because even though he kept saying there had to be another reason for all this, he knew we were scared. And I regularly came home to an empty house. So one day he decided to show me how to use the gun. I believe it was a Beretta. It was a kind of handgun that took a magazine that's put in from the bottom, and then you have to slide the rack to get a bullet in the chamber. At this point, I'm young, so guns still scare me. So I only halfway pay attention to my dad's instructions because I'm thinking, geez, that's a lot. I'll never use that big ass gun.
Time will tell.
The very next day, coincidence? I think not. I came home from school early, about 3 p.m.-ish. My brothers were in sports and my parents were working, so I would be alone till at least 5:30. Sometimes being alone was just unavoidable, and as long as the house was quiet, I wasn't scared. So I get home and immediately head upstairs to change my clothes. But before I even made it to the top of the stairs, I heard that big, heavy back door clearly open and close. Not quietly or loudly, just normal sounding. So I kept going upstairs, but I yelled over my shoulder, "Hey, who's home?" I made it to the top of the stairs and was about to go into my bedroom, but whoever was home never responded and started making a lot more noise, like loud, deliberate noises, opening and closing cupboards and opening drawers really sharply, making its contents like the silverware rattle around. It seemed very extra.
Somebody wasn't happy.
Now I'm still at the top of the stairs because the loudness caught my attention, and I didn't make it to my room. Now, these stairs are enclosed on 3 sides with a solid wall, so kind of like a hallway staircase. And from the top, the only opening was at the bottom with a door on the right side. So you couldn't look straight down the stairs and see into the house because it was blocked by a wall. Therefore, at the top of the stairs, you couldn't see much of anything except through that side door opening, which only showed a little counter and some drawers next to the kitchen sink. Also at the top of the stairs, there was a wooden railing that you could hold for balance once you were near the top. But it was a very small rail, kind of useless and odd really. Even up till now, I've never seen any other stairs built like these.
They sound kind of strange to be hallway-like.
They were weird. So I keep hearing noises which are definitely meant for me to hear. I yell out a few more times asking who's home. There's certainly, without a doubt, someone in the house. I'm starting to become really concerned, and it seems like the more scared I get, the more obnoxious the noises become. Because now, doors and cupboards are slamming, not just closing. Chairs are moving back and forth, and the footsteps get louder and faster, like someone is running. I definitely feel like whoever it is getting more and more riled up. Now I'm kneeling on the floor at the top of the stairs, straining to see whatever I can through the handrail and into that little glimpse of the kitchen. But I see no shadows and nothing moving. But the noises keep getting louder and more frantic. This feels like a really terrifying dream has come to life, and I feel like someone wants to harm me. It's very threatening. It took me a minute, but I remembered my dad's gun in my parents' room that was right behind me. I'm really fighting leaving my post though, because I'm too scared that if I look away for even a moment, this obviously now angry entity would seize the opportunity and run up the stairs to get me. I know that makes no sense now, but at that moment, that's exactly what I had convinced myself was going to happen.
With everything going on, I mean, all the things running through your mind, you can't help but just go into panic mode.
Nothing made sense. I was in total panic mode. My fear is overwhelming, so I decide to make a run for the gun. I literally run as fast as I can, open the drawer, grab the gun and cartridge, and run back to my spot. I immediately look down again and still can't see anything, but I must have pissed it off, because the noise and chaos gets even worse. After a minute, I finally yell down as loud as I can, "Whoever you are, you better get out of here because I have a gun." Then just to show it that I mean business, I noisily shove the magazine into the gun and slide the rack. It was all very dramatic, but I wanted to be sure that they knew I really had a gun. Unexpectedly, the noise quickly stops after this moment of bravery. But I don't feel brave at all. In fact, I have no idea how I even held on to that gun because my entire body was shaking uncontrollably.
Man, I don't know how you got everything put together. My hands would be so sweaty.
Ugh, it was awful. After a minute, maybe two, the noises start up again. Footsteps, cupboards, drawers, chairs, doors, anything that could be moved was moving. But this time it was in slow motion, not chaotic like before when it was frantic. I don't know why, but this new, slower way of taunting me was even more nerve-wracking than the fast pace. I think it was because I felt like I was interacting with it, which made it all too real. It must have heard me when it suddenly stopped, knowing I had a weapon. So in my mind, this acknowledgement told me it had to be human, right? Because why would a ghost be intimidated by a gun? So now a human who could simultaneously move everything movable in my house felt more threatening than a ghost. Either way, I felt doomed. You have so many bizarre thoughts when you're scared to death because all of this actually made sense to me at the time.
I don't know how you did it.
Me neither. As things kept moving all over my house, a horrible thought entered my mind. Maybe it was one or both of my brothers trying to really scare me. Like most siblings, we did like to scare each other once in a while. And my mom and I had gotten both my brothers really good a couple of years before, so maybe this was payback. It crossed my mind. But since we moved into the house, all the scaring stopped. We had enough of that going on daily. But I still thought, geez, what if they're just being completely stupid and think this is funny while I'm having a total meltdown and I'm trigger happy with a loaded gun? Regardless, I stay militantly focused for what feels like forever on the opening at the bottom of the stairs. The whole time I have this loaded gun pointed straight at that opening, ready to kill who or what is stupid enough to pop their head through, I genuinely feared for my life and I was not playing.
I can't imagine it being your brothers. I mean, especially since you told them you had the gun.
When you're in that position and you're just trying to make sense out of something, I mean, it came to my mind for sure.
I get it.
But the thought of all this possibly being one of my brothers takes over and it really starts to weigh on me. So I again yell out and scream both of their names and I say, please, please don't be playing with me right now. I don't want to hurt you. Please just let me know it's you. No answer. I'm suddenly overwhelmed and start to cry really hard, but I have to control it because I can't let my tears blur my view of the opening at the bottom of the stairs. Hard as I try, the tears take over because I can't stop thinking, what if I shoot my own brother? I'm petrified that I might kill someone I love today. These thoughts terrify me and I'm an emotional wreck, but I still can't put the gun down because what if it's not my brother? This whole incident was by far the most mentally cruel thing that happened to me personally the entire time I lived there.
That sounds terrible, but I can't imagine it being one of your brothers.
Well, obviously it wasn't.
Right.
Finally, around 6 p.m., I hear voices downstairs. I hadn't noticed the back door opening because there were door slamming sounds the whole time. But I hear my mom talking to my little sister while she comes through the door. All the noises suddenly stop, but it still took me a minute to put the gun down because after holding on to it for hours, my fingers were literally frozen stiff around it. But finally, I drop the gun on the floor and go barreling downstairs. I'm crying and I try to tell my mom everything that just happened in like 10 seconds. But she's just staring at me like, what the hell happened to you? And of course, looking around the house, there's no evidence that anything has been moved. I'm not usually a dramatic person, so I think she was pretty shocked to see me so terrified. I think she was just processing like, did I lose my mind or did something really happen?
At least it was a tidy entity, didn't make a mess.
Yeah, I also didn't have proof that anything went down.
Okay, so it's a tidy, clever entity.
Tidy, manipulative entity. I was exhausted and still ridiculously paranoid from being emotionally tortured for nearly 3 hours. When I told her about the gun, she immediately went upstairs and found it where I left it. She must have put it away, and when she came back down, I don't think she really knew what to say, because she just kept staring at me. With concern on her face, she asked if I was okay. I was better now, but it was an extremely traumatic experience. I even felt my hands shaking a little bit when I was writing this part of the story. It still gets me.
Wow, that was intense.
Yeah, it's a horrible memory. Whew. Another day while walking home from school, I found a pure white kitten. It was very little, and I brought it home and asked if I could keep it. We had a dog, so my mom hesitated, but she said I could keep it for a while. I think it may have been 6 weeks old at most. So I had to hand feed it, and it slept with me. I really loved it. I kept it in my room just to make sure it wasn't near the dog when I was at school. After having this kitten for maybe a couple of weeks, I came home alone, and as soon as I entered the back door, I could hear my kitten loudly meowing. But my room is upstairs, and I can hear it very clearly downstairs. So I ran up to double check, and my kitten was not in my room. Weirdly, nobody had been home since I left, and my bedroom door was still closed. I have no idea how it could have gotten out and closed the door behind it. But regardless, I immediately started hunting for it. I tried to follow the meowing, which was loud but very echoey, so it was difficult to track. I'm looking everywhere for this kitten for well over an hour, and as time is going by, the meowing is getting weaker and slower, which makes it even tougher to find. I'm really frustrated and start to wonder if maybe it got caught in the walls or something. I'm freaking out thinking I'll never find it and it's going to die in the walls. But by now, it's been about 2 hours. And since I walked through the door, I had needed to pee real bad, but put it off to find my kitten. I'm downstairs, so I ran into the bathroom where the door had been closed since I got home. So I never even went in there, knowing that the cat could not possibly have gotten in through a closed door. When I got in there, the lid was down on the toilet. So I lifted it and was stunned. My little white kitten was inside the toilet with only its little head still above the water, and she had her paws up like she was holding onto the slippery sides of the bowl for dear life. And now she was staring up at me, but she was weak and could barely make any noise now.
Poor little kitty.
Oh my God, it was so bad. I'm so shocked that for a few seconds I don't even react because I can't wrap my head around what's happening. Finally, I snap out of it and grab my little kitten out from the toilet. When I pull her up, her little body stays in that exact position that it had been in while in the toilet, literally frozen stiff. She's still alive, but just barely. So I grab a towel and put her next to my body for warmth. She was like ice. It takes a while, but she starts to warm and her body softens. I'm crying and trying to comfort her as best as I can, but it doesn't look good.
Aw.
The whole time I'm holding this kitten, I can't figure out how she could have gotten into that bathroom in the first place and then shut the door behind her. That's not possible. That's the first thing. But let's say through some bizarre miracle, she did get herself in there. Well, then what about the toilet? 100% there is no way she could have jumped onto and into the toilet bowl and then closed the lid on herself. She was way too little for that. She was so little that I don't even understand how she even had the strength to hold on to the slippery toilet walls for so long. It made no sense. That bathroom only had a sink and a tub with nothing for her to climb on that would have gotten her onto the toilet. So now the only logically illogical thought was that something had to have put her in the toilet and closed the lid. If that was the case, this was a new level of paranormal cruelty. Up to this point, I hadn't thought that our ghost was capable of hurting living things. And not just hurting them, but hard as I tried, my kitten unfortunately died the very next day. So now it can also kill things? This is beyond comprehension for me. Something too frightening to consider while still having to live in this house.
Not being in that situation, I'm sure it was hard, but I'd have been pissed.
Oh, I was pissed, but you're so scared that everything is just kind of mixed together.
Yeah, I get all the emotions running through you at that point.
Yeah. Sadly, the kitten wasn't the only victim of our evil paranormal. We had a Pekingese dog named Bo. He wasn't a tiny dog. He was small, but built like a tank because he loved to eat. He ate way too much. We actually nicknamed him Bogart because of how he inhaled his food. But he was a sweet dog, a good little boy, and we loved him. He was a house dog and definitely pampered a bit. We never let him out unless we were with him because purebred Pekingese dogs were pretty pricey and we didn't want him to get stolen. One day, Bo goes missing. Nobody has any idea what happened to him. We knew he wasn't let out by accident, but he just vanished without a trace. The whole family went looking for this dog all over the neighborhood for well over a week before we finally came to accept that he was really gone. We were all very upset by this. I mentioned earlier that I worked at a restaurant called Casa Churro. I was 14, but I lied about my age and they hired me as a cashier. It was a small restaurant on a corner about a couple of miles from my house. About 3 weeks had passed since Bo went missing. One day I'm at work and it was really hot inside the restaurant, like weirdly hot for no reason, and we couldn't figure out why. So desperate for some relief, we had never done this before, but we propped open the main entrance door, which faced the back parking lot, to try and cool the place down. The doors had only been open for a few minutes when I saw this really ratty looking animal very slowly walk through the door. I'm a dog lover, so my heart went out to this homeless looking creature because I figured it must be hungry and smelled the food. But this poor dog is in really bad shape. It was filthy, and its fur was crazy matted like it had been homeless its whole life. The dog walked in looking very sad with its head down. Eerily, it stopped right in front of my register and looked up for the first time and stared directly at me. I was like, what the heck is going on here? It took me a moment, but I suddenly realized who it was. I screamed, Bo? And the dog didn't react at all. It just kept staring at me. So I ran around the counter to get a better look at him, and sure enough, it was a very distraught and weak-looking Bo. He looked so bad that I guess he may have had a couple more days of life in him.
Poor guy.
But how is this even possible? How does our missing dog of a few weeks now just stroll into my restaurant on his own during those few minutes we had left the doors open at an exact moment when I was working? And he doesn't wander around the restaurant looking for food. He just walks directly toward me, no one else. There are too many things that would have had to align for this to happen. What are the chances? At the time, I wasn't focused on that though. I was just thrilled to see him. I grabbed him and loved all over him. Obviously, I couldn't clean him up yet, but I gave him food and water. He scarfed down some bomb carne asada that day. My coworkers knew about my missing dog, and they were shocked when I told them this was him. They kept looking at me like, are you sure? Because this is obviously a ratty old street dog. But I knew it was him. I kept him in a back room until I was off work, and then I took him home. My family was completely surprised by how this all happened, and even more shocked that a really expensive dog could be roaming the streets homeless for weeks. It made no sense that nobody snatched him up. But then again, none of this made any sense. It all seemed impossible. The sad part is that when Bo got home, he was never quite the same. And yes, we confirmed that this was definitely our Bo and not a different dog. But he had lost his spunk, his joy, and his personality. He just seemed constantly depressed. He lived a bit longer, but my heart broke for him because obviously something terrible had scarred him while he was away from us. But at least he was home, and now we could comfort him.
He was torn up by the streets.
Something. I think it was more than the streets. Doesn't make sense that he would be on the streets for all that time. So.
And whatever it was scared him enough to go away from the house.
I think whatever it was took him away from the house is where I'm going.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he was on the streets all that time. Anyway, we could get into a whole bunch of stuff, but I think this dog was
Traumatized.
Traumatized. There you go. There are many more little instances that would take far too long to get into, but this last story was the one that made all the difference. As I mentioned before, my little brother and I had our rooms next to each other upstairs. So on laundry day, we were told to bring our dirty clothes baskets to the laundry room, which, by the way, in that laundry room, the washer and dryer constantly turned themselves on and off. It happened so often that we just basically ignored it. So my brother, who I love dearly, and I say that because it's an important thing to know, grabbed his basket and I grabbed mine, and we headed down the stairs. Now remember, these stairs are walled in except for a doorway on the right side. So that means there's a solid wall at the bottom of the stairs. My brother's right in front of me as we start down. All of a sudden, I see my little brother's shirt move and his body gets lifted, then hurled down the stairs. He hits the wall at the bottom hard. I'm completely in shock and haven't moved because my brain can't process what I just saw. Thank goodness my brother only had the wind knocked out of him and he wasn't badly hurt. So after a minute, he jumps up and glares at me, screaming, "Why did you push me down the stairs?" He's livid. At that moment, it hadn't even crossed my mind that he would think it was me who viciously threw him down the stairs. I was still in shock. But he's pissed and he keeps yelling at me. So I snapped out of it and I told him that I didn't push him. I swear. He's like, "Yes, you did. I felt you push me." He's super heated, and rightfully so. In a moment of clarity, I look down and I see that I'm still holding my laundry basket because I'm beyond scared and haven't moved an inch. So I say, "Look, I'm still holding my basket. How could I have pushed you?" We have a moment of eye contact, and I'm starting to cry. My brother quickly realizes that I'm telling the truth. I love him and would never hurt him. I throw my basket down and run down the stairs, scared that I'm going to go flying also. We both hurry to my mom and tell her what just happened. were obviously terrified because we knew there was something in the house, but it had never been physical with any of us, until now. My mom is shocked, but I'll give her a lot of credit because she took us very seriously and we moved out of the house that same night.
I remember you telling that story before. Not all of the stories, but that particular one, I remember you telling me about it like years ago.
That was the scariest thing. We were able to move back to our house in the city of Bell, which happened to be vacant, thank God. But my dad was really pissed that my mom moved out so hastily because they had worked really hard for this house. My dad worked so much overtime that he didn't spend a lot of time at home. He was a city bus driver and his job was very close to his mother's house, so he would stay there often so he didn't have to commute. Yes, he heard the noises and knew about all the weird things happening, but he didn't believe it was paranormal. Again, this way of thinking makes no sense to me. But you do you, boo. Or maybe I should say you do you, boo.
I think that some people just don't want to believe it, or they're just not open to the thoughts of spirits and ghosts.
And I understand not wanting to believe it, but when it's in your face with no other explanation, I mean, just saying.
It's there. It's all about your beliefs and what you're open to.
You can't pretend what happened didn't happen. It happened. Now you're just left trying to figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
So when we left, my dad refused to leave. I think he thought if he took a stand, we would all get over it and eventually come back home. So he was staying in the house by himself no matter what. On his third day alone in the house, he had the day off and decided to take a nap on the couch in the living room. That man loved to nap and could fall into a deep sleep in seconds.
And seriously, I can attest to this. He did love his couch.
You remember that man could sleep on anybody's couch at the drop of a hat. It was so embarrassing. Even if there was a big party going on and we needed the couch for seating, he didn't give a hoot.
I remember many parties, he'd be on the couch.
Shirt open, snoring.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to go down that road.
Shirt open, belly out, snoring his little heart out.
The memories.
R.I.P. The couch he fell asleep on was literally about 3 feet from the front door, which he had left open for a nice cool breeze. While deeply sleeping, he says something woke him up. He opened his eyes and saw nothing, but he knew something was there. He was not alone. My dad, another guy who's not scared of anything, stayed frozen in fear for hours, lying on the couch with the front door wide open and his car keys on the coffee table right in front of him. But he said he knew that if he moved, something terrible was going to happen. He felt an evil, intense darkness watching him, and he was terrified. But after so many hours, he knew he had to make a move. So he finally got the courage to jump up, grab his keys, and run out the door. When he got to our other house, he was a mess. He immediately apologized to my mom for not believing her.
Wow. That you never told me. And he was a big, nothing is going to scare me type of guy.
Well, he was until that moment. Our house brought down a lot of tough guys.
Apparently.
Now, we had a house still filled with all of our personal belongings and a door that was left wide open. But my dad swore he would never step foot in that house again. So he asked his younger brother, a great big guy, fearless cop, if he and some of his buddies would be willing to move our stuff out. Of course, my uncle laughed at my dad about the whole situation and said, "Sure, I'll do it as long as you let me have a big party there." Typical. Naturally, it would be mostly cops at that party, so you know it was crazy. So my dad made the deal, and that's how we got our stuff back.
Did anything happen at the party? Paranormal-like type stuff?
I just heard it was wild, and you know my uncle, so you can only imagine they probably scared the ghost.
Yes, I do. I do remember your uncle. Another great guy.
And you can totally see an entity being scared of him.
Yes. He'd just stand there and throw his arms up. What?
Be like, "You want a piece of me?"
That's right. Bring it. Bring it. Bring out those feathers too while you're at it.
Now, let me interject with, while all these other things are happening in the house, and all the way until the day we moved out, freaky white feathers continued to float in the space under the stairs. always pure white and always the exact same amount of feathers, never more and never less. In the beginning, we had gathered them a few times and put them in the trash. But after a while, we realized that was pointless and wasn't going to change anything. It was a really bizarre thing that stayed consistent every single day for the entire time we lived there. So eventually, I just avoided going in there unless absolutely necessary, like for a shortcut. It was always very uncomfortable and just really spooky. I will say, looking back, even though I'm a massage therapist now, and most therapists truly believe in energy, I'm not big on the energy stuff. But I genuinely think that those stairs had dark energy power. It sounds weird to even say that, but I can't describe it any other way. A lot of things that happened were connected to the stairs in some way, and they seemed to have a lot to do with what was constantly going on in the house. Me holding the gun at the top of the stairs, my brother being pushed, the freaky feathers, the fire that was right next to the under the stair space in the weird room, the creepy peephole, and all the toying with us and our telephone involved us going up and down the stairs. And these are just my own personal stories. I know my family had their own stuff happen as well. But even in all the moments where there weren't any big incidents, there were still lots and lots of uneasiness centered around the stairs. I can't help but wonder if the freaky feathers were some kind of deterrent to keep us out of there. Because if that was the case, it worked. We never ended up using that space for anything because it was just too unsettling. And everything would have been covered in feathers.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it was a portal to hell.
Funny you should say that because I've never said that out loud. But as I was writing this, it crossed my mind.
You think?
At the beginning of this story, I mentioned that I knew that the people who currently live there have had experiences. And here's how I came to that conclusion. Now, this is so random. But just like every other inexplicable experience having to do with this crazy haunted house, it makes perfect sense. The spa where I previously worked up until 2024 had a team building day. So everybody who worked in the spa, from the therapist to the receptionist, were all involved. Altogether, maybe 25 people. We were randomly paired up with one other person that we were supposed to get to know better. I was paired up with a young girl who was a receptionist. I didn't really know her very well, but she seemed like a sweetheart and I liked her. So we sit down together and we're just supposed to ask each other questions, whatever pops into our brain to get to know each other. Obviously, she asks me where I'm originally from. Now, when other people have asked me where I'm from and I tell them, I always get a look that says, never heard of it. So this is what I fully expected. I tell her that home for me will always be Bell Gardens. She is visibly excited to hear this and tells me that she also grew up in Bell Gardens. What? What are the chances? We were both shocked and talked about how we never run into anyone from there because it's such a small city. So she tells me what part of the city she grew up in her whole life. And then she asks me what part of the city I lived in. I tell her we were practically neighbors and I give her just the street corners of my house. No address or any other info. Suddenly she gets real serious. She looks at me like I now have two heads and timidly asks me, on the corner? And I say, yes. Wait, did you live in the haunted house? I'm pretty sure my mouth dropped all the way open because that was the very last thing I expected her to say. I didn't even know how to answer, but I finally said, yes, I did. How could you possibly know about that? And she says, everybody knows about that. How could you have lived there? I've been scared of that house my whole life. Now, I'm still processing her knowledge of the house being haunted. I'm genuinely stunned. I don't know what to say, but I want to ask her a million questions, and I can tell she wants to ask me a million questions too. But our time is short at this event, and we agree to talk later. Strangely, she left the job shortly after she and I developed this weird kind of connection, being from the same city, and of course, her knowing about the house. But she was 30 years younger than I am. So the story she heard had to be associated with the new family there, because I know they weren't about my family. We kept that to ourselves. Again, how is it even possible that I would run into somebody 30 years younger who I've never met and knows about this house? Not impossible, but how is it possible? Another bizarre bit of information that came up was the price that my family purchased this house for and what they actually sold it for. I was shocked at the tremendous loss my parents took when they sold it. According to the records, my parents sold that house for only 13% of what they purchased it for just a year earlier. That's how desperate they were to get rid of it. I can't even wrap my skull around that. This means that the next people who remember still live there bought this nightmare for 87% off. Quite the bargain, even for a nightmare.
So I wonder if you have to list this kind of stuff on the MLS, real estate agents. Like somebody passed away in the house. There's a ghost, an entity, and a portal of hell there.
I don't know if my parents did, but these people haven't sold it, so I don't know. I never knew this until now, but I totally get it. I personally wouldn't live in that house if it was the last house standing and they gave it to me for free. I'm not even joking about that. I will tell you that from the day we left, none of my family ever went back to that house. As an adult, I've been back to Bell Gardens a few times for different things, but I've never even considered driving by that house. And I guarantee you, I never will.
Oh, man. Now, I totally want to see this house. It's literally like 5 to 10 minutes from where I grew up.
I'm happy to give you the address, which I know by heart, by the way, which is weird. But beware, don't pick up any little green hitchhikers on that corner.
Well, I've always wanted to know the details of this house and this story, so thank you for braving your way through it.
You're welcome. It was a lot.
I know. You told me. Very emotional.
Yeah, I did get emotional when I was writing that part about the gun. I did have a little breakdown. It sounds silly, but it was very intense.
Well, and it traumatized you, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, it really did traumatize me because I know I'm not crazy. It was all real.
Mm-hmm. Again, thanks for opening it up. And to our listeners, remember to take care, have fun, and don't forget to let your grimaginations run wild. Bye!
Bye, everybody!
We want to thank you for spending a little time with us. We truly appreciate it. If you'd like to send in your creepy little grim bits, we'd love to hear your personal stories, eerie interests, or strange suggestions. And don't be shy. We love our listeners, and we're excited to hear from you. Email us at grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com.
Stay connected and follow Grimwit with Dimwits on Instagram, X, Facebook, and YouTube. Also, check out our website for more spooky fun at, you guessed it, Grimwit with Dimwits. We'd also really appreciate it if you take a moment to rate and review the show. Those 5-star ratings go a long way. Until then, join us again as we dive deep into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.